All right. So thanks again for meeting with me and spending your time over the semester to help me develop this project. So this is my story of planning, marketing, and assessing library services for McClure High School. So in the beginning, of course, I looked at what is going on currently in the school district. The new superintendent, there's some things that are happening within the community that has kind of shaken things up a little bit, to say the least. And then there's the Prop I that was just passed in order to include more funding for STEM, or science, technology, engineering, and math-related programming. So I took all of that, and then I also started thinking about the existing services that you provide here within the library. And the first several of them are all regarded around students, because as we had our conversations, that seemed to be the number one concern that you had, was making sure that you had everything there for the students to be able to engage and to feel welcome. Some of those things include your collaborations with the St. Peter's Unity Church of Christ, which has helped to establish additional support for lesbian, gay, transgendered, and bisexual teens. And then there's the space. You have music. You always have things here to make people feel comfortable, to make your students feel comfortable. And in return, what I saw that would be helpful with was making sure that students still wanted to come to school, that they felt welcome being here and learning. In addition to that, you provide relevant materials that help out with coursework. You collaborate with the teachers in order to make sure that there are things that are here, and you take their student requests. So all of that just promotes a healthy reading environment and learning environment. So the other thing that I noticed within the district is that they definitely view themselves as being an innovative district, and they want to be innovative and really prepare students for college and just any choice that they make after their high school career is over. And that's also included in the MSIP guidelines, the Missouri Standards and Improvement Program for accreditation. Making sure I include everybody in here so you guys know what I'm talking about. And then we talk about faculty innovation and entrepreneurship. And I thought of that big time when it comes to the Child Development Center and the St. Louis County Library, and us working all together here at the high school to include students that are teenage and preschool aged, all coming together. So I think that's a pretty innovative program. It takes a lot of collaboration. Also with the brand, we talk about local, global engagement, social inclusion. That's, again, you just collaborate with so many different people, and you do a great job at that. So coming up with ideas to help expand or to recommend for something different was kind of challenging, because you are the only head librarian that's here. You have one part-time assistant that's here to help you. So yeah, of course, we can come up with all sorts of big, grand ideas, but how do we make these changes and make them small at a time, and at the same time gain more support for them, so that way you can make it bigger and better. So that's kind of where I was trying to focus on students, and also on things that would appeal to your administration that could maybe potentially garner some more support for library services. Great. So the first outcome that I thought of was a partnership with college and university librarians. Because of the emphasis that's out there on making sure that students are ready for college. There was a couple of studies. One of them is the Oakleaf-Owen study, where they were talking a lot about students being prepared for college, and working with college librarians to say, these students aren't familiar with how to search or how to use us for some initial research projects. And in that study, they gathered syllabi in order to be able to combine what the library could do and say, oh, these are your requirements. This is how I can help your students meet these requirements or meet these standards. But I thought here that might be pretty nice to be able to connect, because it is a big deal to be able to advance to that next stage and to have all the information that you need. And it's something that between MSIP and the district and the school, everybody is saying we want our students to be prepared, so we need them to have these information literacy skills too. So I thought that by maybe starting off with some questionnaires, just to be able to even introduce the idea, the concept of that collaboration would definitely I feel like that takes some time, or it's a good idea to leave time for that, to be able to cultivate and generate a good idea of what the program could look like. And so that was as far as I could really get, because the program could look
any way.
Right, absolutely. But by just opening up that that
communication
dialogue
between that via email even is simple. Yeah.
Right, right. And so my recommendations for a pilot assessment was just to send out simple questionnaires to obtain potential interest for future collaborations, and to see if they are aware of the students who are succeeding or who are struggling and being able to use their service. It has the mutual benefit for them of being able to prove that, hey, these are why we have our services, so that way these incoming freshmen and our students can use it. And there's a really neat thing that could that could transpire, that potentially could transpire. And there's lots of colleges nearby too. So let's see, an alternative method to be able to use, I had mentioned the syllabus review, and using that as kind of a way to for you to even look at what's available and then to come back with something. But I thought that was a little bit labor intensive to be able to go through and to decide. Or even thinking of the way that you could even use syllabi, start here at the high school level and gather syllabi to be able to determine. And then even translate what you learned from that to move on to college librarians.
That's a good idea.
Another way would be an interview, or I don't know if there could be even like an open house of some sort where you invited those librarians.
They have an open house at Flow Valley every year too.
Oh yeah,
I haven't been in a few years, but yeah, that's a really nice thing to go to with some of these ideas.
Have you been able to? Do you know who the librarian is over there?
It's changed. I did more collaboration, not really. I've been there several times in the past. They asked, but it wasn't so much an exchange of information. It was more me reporting on some things that I was doing at the time. So I would love to touch base with them again. I think they have a new person now. So
that's always there's so much change that's going on. So it's a good time to start collaborating. Let's see. So, and then you, of course, could use that new information to establish new instruction methods. And you have a really good practice of putting things on Facebook, on social media, and on your website. So I thought that when it comes to reporting most of these things, putting it on that website, even though it's not necessarily, from what I gathered, it's a tool that your teachers use to guide students to resources and make it more accessible. But I think having that as almost a repository for some of the things that you have been doing makes it easy to share with other people, because then you could just send them the link. This is what I did. Here's a link. And even post it on Facebook. Here's a link to a longer thing that we've established. And so it's just one more.
Great. I'm starting a new website next year too.
Oh, so, cool. Awesome. Cool. That would be great. And so then, let's see, responsible parties, all of these say you.
Okay, of course.
But it does give an opportunity for for your library assistant or even student aides in some cases to be able to help out.
That's great.
And the timeline for this, I said it may take some time in order to cultivate interest, but there's no time like the present to be able to just start, thinking about it and start talking about it. And then maybe not next school year, but the following school year, saying, okay, this is how we're going to change things for incoming freshmen or outgoing seniors to help them with that transition.
Yeah, that's great.
So that's one outcome.
I like it.
And then my other outcome.
Yeah, I like this one too.
Is adopting an evidence-based practice establishes a portfolio to assist in advocacy for more library resources and enhanced instruction methods. You do so much, and I feel like you do connect with the students on a much bigger scale than just opening a door and letting people have access. And then the institution wants our students to be well educated and well prepared, and there's just some sort of, it seems like we can't talk to each other so much to say like, no, this is what I do. And when you have spent so much time and so much energy into developing something, being able to educate people who aren't familiar with what you do, I could see how that could be tricky, time-consuming when they have a busy schedule as well. But using the website, again, to just collect that evidence and to basically teach everybody what you do. And that will not only help the admin, but it could also help your fellow librarians at other places without having to take up too much more of your time type of thing too, so where they'd have access to some of the things that you've been able to do. So thoroughly collecting material and having it in there. And we had talked how you have a sign-in sheet for students to come in.
For after school especially.
And when they sign in, do you have any spot on there where you could say, oh, I'm an after school for book
this
club?
year I don't, but I have in the past, where they say if they're working on the computer, if they're there for a club, if they're there. But that's an idea to add that.
Because that way, I feel like it's a stronger argument to say, like, not only do we have all of these kids that are coming to book club, but we also need more support for keeping the library open, so that students can come in and have access to these resources.
And I like the idea of a like a Google form during the day where if the teacher sends a kid on the pass, they can just get on the live form and see if the kid is presently there and have signed in. So there's a lot of benefits for that, but documentation is a big one.
We use Google Forms a lot at our library, and it works out pretty well. Even there's a spot for, of course we made it, but we have added a spot for comments and stuff too, to where if I notice something peculiar that happened that day, and we kind of break it down to where all you have to do is just click a button and say, oh, there was 30 kids at Click Book Club, it was awesome, and send it in. And then being able to easily, at the end of the week, at the end of the month, just look at that and say, boom. So it's kind of collecting everything all at once.
That's a big goal for next year.
And
because I want to make my whole schedule using Google Calendars and forms.
And I love it too because it's free.
Yeah, it is.
and other people can access it and that sort of stuff if you want them to. But it would be another way to say, here, library coordinator, here, principal, look at what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's good.
So let's see. That's basically what that one's all about. I was trying to see if I missed anything.
Well, and one thing that I'm going to mention in my comments on my evaluation thing too, that this comes in handy a lot because in Missouri, starting next year, school librarians are being formally evaluated, and documentation is a big part of that. And that was one of the things that I felt was one thing that I needed to improve was just more data collection, more surveys, more exit forms from the kids that are in here and stuff. So
it was one of those things where, as I was working on it, and we had discussed as well of how to show that what you do makes a difference. And knowing that the new evaluation forms were coming in, it was like, okay, well, so that's going to happen. I can't control that part of it, but what else can we do here in order to prepare you for that sort of stuff, and or not to prepare you, but to support it. But to gain just more evidence through that.
This is a good one. Yeah.
So, and then the last one, because it's so student-centric, is to develop a makerspace. So the newly developed makerspace will invite library users to engage in collaborative, creative thinking, and problem-solving activities. So this one is, of course, my favorite because I like to make things. But the recommendations for the...
I need those 2 books back.
Okay, hon, they're on the cards. Okay.
No worries.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
This is what happens when you're the head librarian at a high school. So what I had mentioned was begin with using material and supplies that are already accessible to you. And that could include like duct tape, that can include just origami, paper, anything, old books, anything can just to get kids to start tinkering and playing with things. The alternative methods for figuring out like how many students are familiar with makerspaces and would be interested in it. I thought, maybe to your Slackers group or to the student body to say, what do you guys think about having something like this? And then after it's implemented, asking more questions about what do you think of it now and where could it go?
Yeah, I want a lot of kid input.
And having that ownership over it makes a big difference. Analysis of the evidence. So you just look at kind of what was working, what wasn't working, and it's another one of those organic things that would have to, ebb and flow a little bit as we got more material, as there was more support for it to get more material for it. And then I believe, can't remember if I mentioned on here, but just borrowing from other people or just using other outside resources to come in and offer their expertise to be able to assist with having things available. Initially, if students aren't attracted to the area, consider digital breadcrumbs. This Curdy and Fleming resource.
I read it. I really liked your bibliography with some of those articles. I'm going to read some of those.
They're great. I had I had to stop myself at a certain point with makerspaces because I love it, and it's so fun to be able to see what other people have done. And when they mention these digital breadcrumbs and having like just little things to intrigue or question, or what can you do with 200 paper clips, or just coming up with things, having a message on the TV they had nearby. And I know that you guys have screens in the hub, so maybe even a screen that kind of promotes that this is happening right now.
That's awesome.
And I know that there was that's on a different slide.
Okay.
Hold on. So I said you could analyze usage on a monthly basis and consider making major changes between semesters, which would kind of is a good time to like, hey guys, welcome back. Look at what I have for you, type of thing. Seems to be easier to handle transitions and stuff. So here is my SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, threats, and opportunities. So with the evidence-based practice, the strength is to have that evidence to prove your impact. The weakness is organizing that evidence in an understandable, where to put it. But by using Google Docs and Google Forms, it's all web-based, it's all easily accessible and easily shareable. But then it's a matter of how to organize it to where, instead of having pages upon pages, having it organized to where it's easily consumable for those people who you're trying to target. Opportunities, you can discover more areas to improve or transform. And then threats is rigid thinking to new proposed ideas. So if you gather all this evidence and you present it, and then people are like, we don't really care, that can be a threat to the
wanting
energy.
To do it again, right?
Right. Collaborate with colleges. Strengths or that students are better prepared for college. The college library can prove their value since the students will be able to know how to use it, and it kind of just continues on. That one article is bridging the 12 to 13 gap, which it talks a lot about that. Then the weakness is it takes time to cultivate these relationships, and if you don't have a lot of time to be able to spare to make the surveys and to analyze what comes back, then that could be troublesome. Opportunities is professional development and contributing to a learning-centered community, to say that we're all trying to help our students to be the best that they can be. So what can we do to share resources and really promote this area as a positive space? And then the threats, a weak questionnaire could always give you a lot of nothing. And then college librarian attitudes towards work and collaboration. If they don't have the same kind of enthusiasm as you do for it, then it may be kind of tricky to get them to be excited, and it also may lead to you doing things that they should be doing on their own. So, but luckily there are so many different librarians and so many different colleges and universities in our general area that hopefully we can find, even one would make a difference in the way that you presented your information here for all of your students. Let's see. And then for the makerspace, the strength is to collaborate, for students to be able to collaborate and to have hands-on materials. Weakness, of course, is there's not a lot of supplies. There's little to no budget at this point. And it's a new concept to students to be able to come in and just to do whatever they want. So coming up with things that make that easier, like the digital breadcrumbs, to kind of almost invite kids to come over and to tinker and give them some direction. And then the opportunities, student-led activities. As students become more involved in it, they become the ones that are the wanting to be able to show off. I can't remember which study it is in now, but there was one where it was all about origami, and one young lady was really into it, and so then one day in their makerspace she gave a little workshop about origami to other students, and that helped her realize that being a teacher isn't always as easy as it may appear, and that different learning styles require different instructions to be able to help them understand. So even having that, I bet there'd be lots of kids who'd be interested in showing their skills.
And I was just talking with someone about doing something next year about nails. And there's some experts at our school that could do that.
So why not have that space for them to be able to collaborate? So if your makerspace includes a collection of fingernail polish, Like, how awesome would that be? Because it's theirs, and they can make it whatever they want.
Cool.
And then interdepartment collaborations. I was wondering, like maybe your science department could show some really cool science trick, and that also explains concepts that are important for high school students to be able to understand. So it kind of is like a playground of sorts, an intellectual playground, if you will. Threats are that students who might misuse the space. That seems to be one of those things where, like, if you abuse it, then everybody loses it type of thing. So that would be kind of a downfall. Do you have a big problem with students misusing your materials while they're in the library?
Not so bad. Mainly, I think I'd probably start with maybe some inexpensive things, and maybe the more expensive things would only come out during club time or something where it's more supervised, or during lunchtime where we can supervise it more or something.
Yeah.
So,
and then also I would see that as students took more ownership over it, they could be like, well,
they'd
you
watch
need
it
to
themselves.
to back off of it. So.
That would be a cool idea to have a student leader earn community service hours too by kind of like supervising the area and helping with certain things. So
Absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely. Right. Moving right along. I'm so excited about this book.
Awesome.
So, of course, if we come up with all of these different things and nobody knows about them, like we want to make sure people recognize what it is that we're doing. So when it comes to marketing, I was trying to think of the different people that you might have to speak to in order to promote these new things. So with marketing outcomes, the teachers will become aware of underlying benefits library programs offer to classroom instruction. That definitely ties in with the collaboration with college librarians to say, no, for real, like I need to show them how to do this because I spoke to, you have a credible source, an actual librarian within a college environment. Administrators will notice the correlation between library services and academic success, and they'll see that through your portfolio of the different programs that you have, and then just the evidence that you collect, whether it's your instruction, what you presented to some other students, and that sort of stuff. And then students will become engaged in a learning environment that promotes and supports curiosity and hands-on learning. And of course, that really goes across the board. Like that's what the whole library does essentially, but then adding that makerspace component to it, it ties in with STEM learning and it just all works together. So when it comes to key messages, my big thing that I thought of with the students is saying it's your library. Come here. Like, it's your library. This is for you to use, and you could take ownership over it. And then with teachers and administrators, it's, again, talking about how the library promotes opportunities for students to learn and to make connections and to give them the tools that they'll need to be successful students beyond high school. And then parents and other librarians, it's just a broad statement of saying that the McClure High School is dedicated to promoting student success and student learning, which is what I feel parents want to know, that their students are getting something good out of it. And then as you talk to other librarians, being a strong advocate for just, even here, saying, hey, this is what we do here. So get on board. Like, let's do it. This is what we're all about. So those are my marketing comments. And I wanted to mention a little bit about budget. Most of the things, I had mentioned a little bit of this before, but most of the things when it comes to budget is all low cost or no cost to try to get things together. I mentioned in the document about maybe student recs, some of the funds that you use for that. Would that be possible? Is that a real possibility?
Know. Possibly.
Because I didn't know if because some of the student recs came from Barnes and Noble.
Yes.
That you purchased, and so if $50 out of student recs went towards getting a makey, or if went towards geting clay or something like that.
We could always do fundraiser or something too, and then obviously I'm really on the lookout for little grant opportunities and things like that too.
And we had mentioned before by collecting that evidence with just the small material that you have available, using whatever's around, can help support your grant opportunities by saying, hey, this is what we've already done, and this is why we need these funds to pursue bigger and better things.
Yeah, and as you mentioned that the district is going towards a STEM thing with Prop I passing and stuff, then I want to put a bug in the ear of some people too to say, if you want to try something out in one of the libraries, like pilot it or something, that's kind of what I'm looking at for next year. So maybe we get a little bit of funding or stuff or if they have leftover stuff from something, they can
Right,
send
just
it
to
my
say
way.
we'll take it. Like,
Yeah.
please, we're willing to be your guinea pigs
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
There is a makerspace playbook for high school librarians that's also on that reference list.
Yes,
that
that's what
was
I'm looking
really
forward to.
fantastic.
I'm going to order a couple of those in for me to read over the summer. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some of them that are available online too.
Oh,
I think
good.
the links should be provided.
Yes, yes. And any of
if
the
I cited for it properly.
Yeah, you did include a lot of
and
links.
then it was so great to go through and I think the best thing for me in reading about it was looking at other high school libraries and their successes and their failures,
Yeah.
the support that they got and the support they didn't
Exactly.
get. Some of them started off with, oh, we're going to go ahead and get 3D printers and all this stuff, which is fantastic. But I don't know where that support would be at this point in time for this school.
Right.
But some cool stuff. It definitely helps to see the potential.
Yeah.
So in the end, here's my big impact, and just how we can go from from the beginning to doing something exemplary. And I feel like this also kind of set up the my expectations of the recommendations. I didn't think like, oh, now all of a sudden every single student at McClure is going to come to the library.
Yeah.
Although we want an increase in students being able to participate.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make sure that I recognize that you are the only head librarian that's here. So making realistic but significant advances for the library. So the newly developed makerspace will invite library users to engage in creative thinking and problem-solving opportunities. So if kids just come in and they're able to just play with the hands-on material, that's step one. That's perfect. That's a great start. And then developing, as they start to develop complete actual projects, instead of coming in and just playing with the piece of Play-Doh and then leaving it alone, but to actually develop a project around it, to have an end game, to have a plan, and then to recognize, oh, well, maybe I need some of this and I need to use some of this, and that's not quite working right, so let me develop something that I can show or just be proud of. And then exemplary, students and teachers collaborate to develop products using skills from multiple disciplines. So making things bigger, making things grander and more impressive would show that these kids are really starting to just grab onto this idea and make something out of the makerspace or in the makerspace. And you'll be able to notice this stuff in your statistics sheets. If kids come in, like if you change your statistics sheets to say I'm going to the makerspace, or if you just monitor the area, then by being able to show that students are using it and to be able to show images of what they've created, definitely adds to your...
I like the idea of for some of the teachers that are willing, giving extra credit for kids that spend time in the makerspace too after school. And collecting names that way.
Oh my goodness. And adopting an evidence-based practice helps establish a portfolio to assist in advocacy for more library resources. And if you just start by tracking after-school activities, or maybe you start with just one just to get going. And then as you continue, the librarian shares the activities and books presented within the program, so that way someone like myself could be like, oh, I'm totally going to take that and use it for my library too. A librarian is able to use evidence collected through programming to advocate for more library resources. I want to see that happen so badly. But by having all of this evidence available to show, like, this is what I can do, I can't see how a district who wants their students to be so successful and who wants to be an innovative community organization would deny adding more resources if you could show them what is being done here within the library. And then a partnership with college and university librarians will enable the head librarian at McClure High to become more aware of and communicate the changing information needs of college-bound students. So if you're even just to establish a relationship with one or two librarians, just to be able to know that they're there and that they're working, that's one thing. And then being able to know more about the needs that they see that their students need in order to be good information seekers within their library, being able to establish more of those things, having those types of conversations would be even better, be developing. But then when the partnership leads to actual programs that make a difference and that are measurable, that's when it's going to be exemplary. And I feel like that's the hardest one to be able to do, and
Yeah.
it will definitely take some time and a lot of cultivating and figuring out what assessment practices would be the best. But in the meantime, just having these conversations and getting started, I feel like is a great way to go.
Absolutely.
So that actually concludes my little presentation for you today. I hope I covered everything.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You
Thank
did.
you. Covered
Wonderful.
everything that might be useful. Is there anything that you think might be not possible? Like, does it all
Not
seem
really. It seems doable. That's part of the reason why I liked it. When I read it through, because you have nice, easy steps, and I think because you spent time with me over the last couple of years, you kind of have a realistic view of my situation, and so you were able to get really realistic
Great.
first steps, and that really helps a lot. And the way it's all done and everything is something that I can show my administrator when I go with my end of the year ideas for next year and for approval for some things, and it will really help.
Right, excellent. I was so
lot.
worried about making sure
Yeah.
that, okay, be ambitious for the class
Yeah.
and have things that, I've researched and I know that this
Yeah.
could be awesome. But then to come to you and say, like, yeah, I want you to spend 20 grand on that's not going to happen.
These are three things that are very doable, and they're also things that were kind of a high priority for me to address anyway. So it really saved me time, and I love especially like the bibliographies, like I said, like the makerspace. Now I'm going to go read all of those things, and it really saved me time from having to go look for stuff. So that I really appreciate that.
Excellent. Well, you're
Yes.
welcome. Thank you.
Love
So that's the end. That's all I have. And so I look forward to working with you more, even
Yeah.
in being able to address some of these since
Yeah.
we're kind of neighbors. So
Love this.
I'm going to stop the video.